Hi, my name is Chris. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing Leetcode 15 3-sum. This is rated as a medium level algorithm. So given an integer array nums, return all the triplets. Nums I, nums j, nums k, such that I does not equal j, I does not equal k, and j does not equal k, and nums I plus nums j plus nums k equals 0. Notice that the solution set must not contain duplicate triplets. Okay, so what does this mean? Basically, we're looking for all the combinations in this array of the numbers that are going to add up to 0, right? So -1, 0, 1. That's going to add up to 0, right? So that's what we see that there. Or, well, this is what we want to see as our output. So it's seeing that there's those three numbers, it equals 0, right? And then we've got 0, 1, -1 again, right? 0, 1, -1, that equals 0. And then we've got one more option, -1, 2, and -1. That's going to equal 0, okay? But we only have 1, -1, 0, and 1 because of this rule. Notice that the solution set must not contain duplicate triplets. What this is all saying too is just that you can't use like the same number twice, right? So for example, you couldn't use or the same number at the same index, right? So we couldn't use like 2, -1, and then that -1 again. That's not allowed. Okay, so then these two examples, this one is just saying, well, our only option, our only triplet does not equal 0, so our output is an empty array. Okay, so let's go over to CodePen and let's solve it here. I like to use this to see what my code is doing as I type it. I'm going to create a function, call it func, and right now we're just going to return nums. And then we're going to console log the, console.log the function so we can see it in the console. Now we should see nums. Very good. All right, so the first thing that we need to do before we even talk about how we're going to solve this is we need to sort this array. Okay, so we're going to do nums.sort A and B, get the arrow function, A minus B. Good. So now we see the sorted array. I have that also written here for reference. Okay, so how are we going to do this? One way that you might think you initially see this and be like, oh, well, why don't we just do a for loop with 2 more nested for loops, right? That would certainly give you every combination possible. But as we know, nested for loops are very, very slow. So we're trying to avoid that. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called the 3-pointer approach. So we're going to have 3 pointers that I'm going to label as indexes, right? So we're going to have index 1, 2, and 3. Okay, index 1 is going to start at the very first element. Index 2 is going to start at the first element plus 1. Then index 3 is going to start at the very last element. And so what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the sum of these 3 numbers equals 0. If it's less than 0, if their sum is less than 0, we're going to increment the left side. So we're going to increment the second index, right? If it's greater, we're going to increment or decrement the right side, so the third index, right? So we check these 3, they don't equal 0, it's less than 0, we move forward. Now, we don't want to check -10, -5, and 5 again. It's the same thing. It's going to slow down your algorithm. Also, like they said here, it must not contain duplicate triplets. Let's say hypothetically that did equal 0, right? Well, then you're going to have duplicate triplets, right? So that's going to mess that all up. So we always need to check when we're here the previous number. If the previous number is the same, we go ahead and increment again. So now we're here, we do negative 10, 4, and 5 is less than 0. Oh, I forgot to mention, before we do that, we check the previous one. Is it the same? No, it's not. So we go ahead and check it. It's less than 0, so we increment it. We check if these are the same. They are, so we just go ahead and increment. We check if these are the same. They aren't, so we check again. That's less than 0, so we move forward. Check these two. They aren't the same, so we check less than 0 again. We move forward. Check these two. They are the same, so we move forward right away. These three, less than 0. Move forward. I forgot to check, but whatever. Move forward. Check these two. It is the same. We move forward. Check less than 0 again. Are these the same? No. We need to check. Again, less than 0. Are these the same? They are. We move forward. Are these the same? They are. We move forward. Are these the same? They are. We move forward. Check these three. And then finally, we get 0. So we see this negative 10, 5, and 5 in our result, our expected output. Okay. At that point, we're going to go ahead and increment the very first index, right? So now this is our first index, this is our second, and then this is our third, right? So now that's less than 0, so we increment the second one. We check if these are the same. They're not, so we check again, less than 0, come to here, check if these are the same. They are, so we move forward. Check if these are the same. They aren't. We check again. So hopefully this is making sense. At some point, you're going to get to, like, say, negative 5, 2, and 5. And so that's going to mean that, or better yet, I'm sorry, let's do it like this. Negative 5, 1, and 5 is going to be greater than 0. And so if that's the case, we need to decrement the last pointer. And then here we check if this one and the previous are the same. If they are, we go ahead and decrement again. Check if these two are the same. They're not. So we make this check. Negative 5, 1, and 2. Less than 0, so this moves forward, right? Negative 5, 2, and 2. Again, less than 0, so this moves forward. We check if they're the same. This moves, and they are, so we move forward. We check if these are the same, and then we would move forward again, but that's when we want to stop, right? So if we get to the point where the indexes 2 and 3 are about to be the same, then we stop and we start over again, and we move the first index forward. Then we got to do that check. These are the same, right? So we automatically move forward. So then we're going to be checking negative 4, and 5, because 2 is going to reset and 3 is going to reset. Okay? And then we're just going to continue this process until finally we get to 2 being 1, 5 being 2, and 5 being 3. That's the final combination we're going to check. And then we're done. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's dive into this. So if the three numbers equal 0, we're going to put that into, we're going to push that into a result array. I'm just going to make it empty for now. Okay, so now we need to do a for loop. So we're going to say for let I1, this is going to be our first index. It's going to start at 0. And we're going to say if I1 is less than nums dot length minus 2. Why the minus 2? Excuse me. Why the minus 2? Because we said here, this is going to be our final index 1. Index 1 never needs to go to these last two numbers, right? Because this is our final check. I'm going to say I1 plus plus. Very good. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to check I1 and make sure that, you know, these are not, like if we're checking, we're going to check this, we need to check if these are not the same. And then we can go ahead and add up the three numbers. If they are, we need to move forward. So at this point, we check if these two are the same. If they are, your first index moves up to -4. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to do. And we're going to do that. We're going to create an if statement. And we're going to say if I1 is greater than 0 and nums at I1 equals nums at I1 minus 1. Right? So if we're here, this is greater than 0. We're checking if that is equal to that. Okay? If it is, we're going to use the continue statement, right? And all that's going to do is if we're here and we check if these two are the same, which they are, right? It's going to increment by 1. So it's just going to go ahead right away and increment again by 1. That's what that's doing. Next thing we need to do is we need to initialize our two other indexes. So I'm going to say let I2 equal I1 plus 1, right? Because we said that our second index is always one more than our first. And then we're going to say let I3 equals nums dot length minus 1. Okay? Okay. And so now what we need to do is we need to find a way where as we're moving, you know, index 2 this way and index 3 this way, remember we said that once we get to the same index, then we stop. We stop doing whatever we're about to do here. So how we can implement this is we can create a while loop. And before I do the while loop, I'm just going to comment out the return in the console log because there's a strong potential for an infinite loop here if I don't do that. So we're not going to see our code executing for a minute here until I'm done with this while loop, but that's okay. So we're going to say if I2 is less than I3, right? Because if it's first thing that's going to happen, if it's not, is there's going to be the same, right? And so then it's going to, once these are the same, it will break out of the while loop and not execute the remaining code. So first thing, just make it easier on us, we're just going to create a variable called sum, and that quite simply is just going to be nums I1, and I'm going to be a little bit lazy here. It's going to copy that plus nums I2 plus nums I3, right? So we're just adding up each number at the three different indexes there. So now we got to create another while loop. And the reason why we need to create this while loop is we need to do the same thing that we did here, where we're making sure that in our first index that the numbers aren't the same. And we need to do the same thing for the second index and for the third, right? So that when we get here, we can see if the following number is the same. If it is, we'll go ahead and move it forward and use that one, right? Same thing here. We're going to get here and we're going to look the other direction. Right, we're going to look in the other direction. If it is the same, we're going to go ahead and decrement right away and then use this one instead. Okay, so we're going to create two while loops. They're going to be very similar. And again, we're going to make sure that we're not on the same index before we do anything. Or that the indexes aren't the same, I should say. So that's what that is doing. And then we're going to say and nums at I2 equals nums at I2 plus 1, right? Then we go ahead and increment I2. All right? So, for example, once we get here, we're going to check if that equals that. So nums I2 equals nums I2 plus 1. It does, so we go ahead and increment again, right? And we use a while loop because, you can be in a situation here where you have 4 2s in a row. So if we look there, they're the same, so we're going to move forward. Look there, and the same, we got to move forward and use this one, right? Now we got to do the exact same thing for the third index. Okay. Whoops. Nums. This time we're going to use the third index, excuse me. And we're going to check if that equals nums at the third index minus 1. Okay. And now because we're going in this direction, we're going to decrement I3. Okay. And so then the final thing we need to do is we need to oh my gosh, I totally left a step out. I'm going to stop for a second here. Okay, so we don't want to do any of this yet. Sorry about that. First thing we need to do is we only want to do that business if sum equals 0. So if we get the result we want, and then we're going to result dot push nums I1 nums at I2, finally nums at I3. Okay, and then inside of that we're going to put these two while loops. See, that would have caused big problems there. All right, good. Then finally, we're going to go ahead and increment I2 and decrement I3. Make sure I didn't mess that up. Just kind of re-looking at my code since I made that mistake. I don't want to cause any huge problems. If I can figure it out, I think we're good. Okay. So we also need to account for if the sum is not equal to 0. So we're going to say else if, there's only other two options, if the sum is greater than 0 or less than 0. So we're going to say else if sum is less than 0, we're going to increment 2, increment index 2, and then if it's greater, which is really the last option available to us, so we're just going to use else, we don't need an if, else if, we're going to decrement I3, okay, and then finally we don't want to return nums, we want to return result. Alright, I think we should be good. So let's go ahead and uncomment these two things here and keep your fingers crossed. Interesting. Why is it? I know exactly why. So my mistake here. Okay. Let's just talk about what I did wrong here. If we go up to the answer, right, you see all the numbers are correct order and everything, right? But we put them all, we didn't put each triplet in its own array. So this is a very simple fix. So all we gotta do is just highlight all that and make it into an array. And there we go. We've got the expected output. All right, so we're gonna copy all of this. We're gonna go to 3sum, back to Leetcode. And first thing we're gonna do is run. See how we did. All right, we passed all the test cases. Let's go ahead and submit. There you go. Fantastic. Well, 30 milliseconds, which isn't that fast, but it beats 92.64%. All right, cool. All right, well, thanks for watching my video. If you'd like to see more like these, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. Enjoy your day.